when you look at volume, okay, so volume is equated by, so for an exercise, volume is equated by sets times reps times weight lifted. So if you're doing, let's say like controlled demolition, right? So you do phase 5, and that first week you do 5 sets of 10, like at a lower weight, but you're doing 5 sets of 10 reps. And then in the last phase, which is phase 8, you're doing 7 sets of 3. So even if the weight was the same, so let's say you were deadlifting 100 kilos, you're doing 5 sets of 10 versus 100, and at that intensity it's probably relative. Let's say it's like 115 for 7 sets of 3. The 100 kilos at 5 sets of 10 is going to cause way more acute muscular damage, because when you actually add up the sets times reps times weight lifted, the total volume or the total tonnage that you've lifted is going to be far greater than the 7 sets of 3. So this is ultimately when you see, the difference between bodybuilders and powerlifters, although it's not as, I think more these days, there's not as, there's not such a huge gap between them now. Like, bodybuilders are kind of doing a bit more like powerlifters, and powerlifters doing more. There's a bit more of a blend. And I think someone asked me a little while ago, it's just like, what's the style of training that we do here? And I'm like, well, it's power building is kind of what it is. It's like we're doing the main 3 sort of power lifts, and we're focusing on building up the intensities of that. And then we're doing all the bodybuilding accessories, pushing to failure, all that. So we're kind of getting the best of both worlds. So in that sense, when you look at a bodybuilder, a traditional bodybuilder, they're always much bigger in muscular size compared to a powerlifter, because of the amount of volume that they do. A powerlifter might do, is 5 sets of 5 on his bench. And given the fact most traditional powerlifters will never go more than 5 reps, they'll do sets of 5, sets of 4, sets of 3s. They might have the odd cycle where they'll do 8s and 10s, but for the most time, they'll spend their time around the 5 rep range or less, because their whole goal for the sport is to lift the maximum amount of weight that you can lift for 1 rep, right? Now, we know that from a muscular growth point of view, you doing really, really heavy weights for super, super low reps and only ever doing that, you're going to be massively limited in your muscle growth. I'm not saying that you won't grow muscle. I'm just saying that you will grow bigger muscle doing more work, doing that 8s to 10s, 12 rep kind of ranges, doing sets of 20 on the leg press. If I just did programs here where everyone just did 5 reps and less, really, really high intensity, you wouldn't see the body composition changes that you did, that you would see here with a lot of the other people. And that's the difference. That's why, and look, bodybuilders generally, traditional bodybuilders are a lot better with diet. I want to throw that out there than powerlifters. For the most part, and that's not to pick on, I know we've got some powerlifters in the program. I'm not trying to pick on you. That's just that is very generalized. But in my experience, and a lot of my powerlifting friends and cohort, they're not the greatest when it comes to food. That's the reality. Like, their whole thing is just like, eat more, lift really, really heavy weights. Whereas, with a bodybuilder, they're a lot more meticulous with what they do with their food, a lot more meticulous what they do with their training, focusing on their physique, specifically, etc. So yeah, that's the difference. When you're doing lower intensity, higher reps, more sets, your total work volume is just a lot greater. And then after you've done your 5 sets of 10, you're doing like 3 sets of leg press to failure, and then your leg extensions. It's just like everyone who goes usually into, after they finish augmenter and goes into controlled demolition, that phase 5, and I'm like, oh my God, I've never been so fucking sore in all my life. This is ridiculous. And it's just like, yeah, it's just, that's where you are. But then as you go through that, you adapt to it. We go into those higher intensities, and then you will go back to the lower intensities for more sets. So that is the main difference, volume per exercise.